Welcome to A Scrap Life, a podcast solely focused on the hustlers, grinders, operators, and business owners who live and breathe the scrap metal industry every day. Here is your host, Brett Eckhart.
K&L, Tyler, Texas. I know there's a story because anytime I've ever went to Texas, I've always ran into great people. I think Texas is probably the state that more resembles Idaho than any state I've really ever traveled to. You got the down south hospitality, but you've also got, people that love the outdoors. We love, being able to do stuff our own way, independent of somebody telling us how to do it. So I'm privileged to be able to sit down and talk to K&L Recycling today out of Tyler, Texas. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having us.
So Jennifer said you guys have a good story. And one thing I know about Jennifer Betts is she's never led me astray. She's much like my wife is in the fact that they're very strong-willed women. And when they know something, right? So K&L based out of Tyler, how many locations does K&L Recycling have?
At the moment, we have 9 brick and mortar locations. 8 of them are here in East Texas. We spread all the way out from Mineola, Texas, which is north of Tyler, so north of Dallas, down to basically Beaumont, Texas. So we cover a big region here in East Texas. Then we also have a facility in Great Bend, Kansas.
That's awesome. So I think when you and I originally talked, you guys have a great story in the fact that at one time you guys were a publicly traded company, correct? And there's not a lot of people that can say we went private to public to private. And so I always kind of found that part of it fascinating for sure. So let's kind of start back before that. Can you give me how did K&L start and what was it before, and kind of give me some history? I always love a good history lesson.
Well, it started in 1968 or 9 when they first really came out with the Big Mac came out with their mobile auto crusher.
Yep,
my parents had been married a long time and weren't able to have children, so they both lived in Dallas, sold everything, and they were approached by Robert Flanagan about possibly going on the road with a mobile car crusher. So they said, we don't have any kids, sure, sell everything, go on the road crushing cars. 6 months later, found out they're pregnant with me. So at that time, they even used airplanes, all kinds of methods, because before that, there wasn't really an easy way for people to get their cars to market. So you would have big, huge acres and acres of cars in wrecking yards. So they would find a big pocket, move there, crush the cars in the area, find the next big pocket, move there. So I lived in 13 states before I was 3 years old. So I was basically born as a carny on a car crushing crew. And we went to Sulphur Springs, Texas, and lived next door to a wrecking yard that we had. And then by 77, kind of decided to go in a different direction. My dad did and got away from metal recycling. So he did various things through then, sold horses, all kinds of stuff. But he got back into it in 1987 when we opened a salvage yard here in Tyler. I was a junior in high school at the time, did my time working at the salvage yard, work desk, all the different things that you do there. Then I left and went to college. And when I did, they closed that and they decided to go back into mobile car crushing. So they left and went to Kansas and crushed cars in Kansas and Missouri. Then when I came home from college, I came back to the office here. And then about 1993 and 4, we started opening brick and mortar locations again. We got up to 21 brick and mortar locations. And then we had our car crushers. We were brokering a lot of scrap, moving a lot of scrap at the time. And so we bought into a public shell out of Utah. So took our company public. Then after we took it public about 1997.
What was the public ticker at that?
It was called Ferex, Ferex.
Okay.
And then after we took it public, I think it was about 95 when it actually went public. And then 97 and 8 is when all the consolidation was happening with metals management and all that. And so we were actually bought by Recycling Industries. And that was a privately held company out of Colorado. They bought us. We went in with them. Their situation didn't work out. So 11 months later, we bought part of it back. And so then we were just going to stay real small and not do much, just kind of coast along.
Yeah.
And, you know, my dad was a true entrepreneur, so that doesn't work very well. So he started growing again. And then we got up to 19 scrap yards at that time. In 2008 hit. And
I like your dad already. Your
he's
dad's got a.
that's right.
he's
So we grew it that big, and then 2008 came, and obviously that was horrible. And so then we just started downsizing and getting lean and mean, and that's how we ended up where we are now. So he's retired. Mark and I are still here, and we have those 9 facilities. We have 3 car crushing crews, and we have 2 demo crews.
So from 18 back to 9, and then now you guys are. So did you get the bug from your dad? Are you guys ready to go? You guys ready to start expanding again, or what's the? Are you happy at 9?
No, we can't just sit still, you know, because we have my son and son-in-law are already involved, and so we got to do something. We're kind of researching right now to see what that next step might be. But no, we can't just sit still. We get bored if we sit still.
I know that feeling. I have that feeling. I feel like that's in this industry. You know, you see a lot of multi-generations, but what you see is people that they start with one, and then either they grow that one like facility, right? They either expand the heck out of it and they, you know, acreage, and they keep adding pieces and parcels, or they add more facilities. I think the entrepreneurial spirit is alive and well in our industry, and people have a hard time just saying, yeah, we're good with just this facility, you know, and
right.
It sounds like that's how your dad was.
So there's just too many opportunities. So it's just kind of deciding which direction you want to go. You can either, you know, get into where you're refining something down to a different package, or, you know, get more yards, do more car crushers, expand your territory, all kinds of things.
So my question for you is because I have a little place in my heart because of my dad. So we used to have a Mack car crusher, but it was a stationary Mack car crusher. And my grandfather and my dad, years ago, they put undercarriage on it, so it could be a mobile car crusher, right? And I think that was kind of how my dad cut his teeth in the industry. And my dad has some of the best stories about my mom, you know, in ankle deep mud out pulling, because in those days it was the lever style, right? Yep. So you had the 2 levers that rocked it as you and so that's kind of how my first taste of car crushing is I never spent much time on the loader, but I spent a lot of time like on pallets trying to not freeze my feet to freed off, or mud, like trying to get into getting my boots, stand on those pallets, like pulling those levers while my dad crushed. Once I was old enough to run the handles and my mom was in the office. So
right.
I do know that feeling all too well.
Yeah, I think she's got stories of her mom sitting on that car crusher, and
because it had the cab, and she had a little Yorkshire Terrier dog, and that Yorkshire Terrier dog would be sitting in her lap, and she'd be running the crusher, and they tell stories about it. They start going too slow, she'd start honking the horn at them, hurry up, bring some more cars.
That's which is like one of the best things about and this is why I say that you say your story isn't that unique or it's not that interesting or whatever, but everybody in our industry has a unique or interesting story. So there has to be a heck of a process to go from a privately held company where you control everything to a publicly traded company where you have control, but not nearly the amount of control you once did. I'm curious what those 2 dynamics are and what the difference, you know, is with those.
We didn't really lose control because, you know, they were basically investors. It wasn't people that had a lot of opinions. They were just betting on us, basically. So we didn't really lose control. But the thing that we did learn through that process is, you know, financials and keeping books and records on a publicly traded company are a lot different than a privately traded company. And
Yeah.
so we had to constantly have in a commodity market, you know, when you're publicly traded, they want to see the curve constantly going like this. If it's not, you have to have an explanation and a story. So, you know, we're constantly keeping a diary. Basically, one of my jobs was to write a diary every day about, well, it rained 10 inches or we didn't have any electricity or whatever, because you had to have a dialogue if you weren't able to continue to grow and show a bigger profit. So we learned a lot about ways bankers and big investors and things look at it. And so when we went back private, and then especially after we bought portions of it back, we continued to run our company the same way that we ran it then. And that's unique probably in our industry.
Yeah. Was it a tough move to go public? Was it a challenge to do that? And what was the motivation behind going public at that time?
Well, the motivation was my dad was ready to sell. My mother was sick at the time. She had cancer. And so he was ready to sell. And that was going to be the best way to get the most bang for his buck, is to sell as a publicly held company. And so, and then oddly enough, we sold to a private company. But that was the motivation behind it. And, you know, it's really expensive, first of all, because you have to have a lot of advisors and things like that to help you do that, to either find the shell or to do your IPO. So it is expensive. I will say it was before Enron. I don't know how much more difficult it would be now than it was then.
Yeah.
And so it's not something that we're looking to do again, but it was a really fun ride and we learned a lot doing it.
Yeah. When we partnered with, for those of you guys who don't know, we partnered with Schnitzer Steel in
You
1990.
bought yourself back, and I think that's incredible.
Yeah, and when we partnered with them, they were a privately held company. They weren't a publicly traded company at that time. So here we are, this little company over in Idaho, you know, 15 employees, and we're partners with, you know, a pretty good sized company at that time. And here that they go public, I think in 2000 or 2001, and now here's our company attached to this, you know, publicly traded company that's growing, and they have their own steel mills. And I mean, they're just, and they're adding and they're growing and they're adding more businesses and acquisitions. And I remember the inner dynamics of how we did accounting and how they did accounting, and how we weren't as concerned about depreciation and they were very concerned about depreciation. And we were like, hey, if we can depreciate this right now and that saves us money from taxes, and we can use that money to grow our business, like that's beneficial for us, right? And in their case, they're like, but you're not showing you're making a profit, you know, so that doesn't help us as a partnership. And we were definitely more long-term focused, you know, a year, 2, 5, 10 out versus, you know, 3, 4, 6 months out. And it was I think that probably created the most, I say it this way, it grew us the most on the knowledge and the accounting side. We learned a lot. We became very much more professional company than we were if we wouldn't have partnered with them, but it also created the most heartache between the two companies because it was
trying to save taxes to trying to show the biggest profit. So you're going to be paying the most taxes.
yeah, they want to pay taxes. That means they're making money, and then they can acquire more, you know, more people interested in it. And not that we move the needle a lot compared to, you know, their operation as a whole, but it was definitely two schools of accounting thought that the small business versus the publicly traded company, they look at things very, very differently. And so you've got to see both sides of that, both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, it was a neat opportunity, but you're right. I mean, it's totally different mind thoughts and the way that you do things. And as a privately held company, you'll be going, hey, I want to do this over here because this is going to make a lot of money, but it doesn't jive with what they want to do.
Yeah.
So that
So
part
is your dad, has he passed away? Is he still involved?
No.
Is he alive?
just retired, but
Okay.
no, he's still around.
I love it. I love it. So does he consult on a daily basis? Does he put his 2 cents in, or does he
Not really as much anymore, but
Yeah.
At one time, he was a consultant.
An unpaid consultant.
Yeah, I never tell her how many times we did it.
he's
So what,
probably right most of the time. But it's just times change, and especially in our business, things have changed, and you can't do things the way that you could have at one time. For
so
sure.
what is your role, Mark, in the
Well, I haven't been speaking a lot because everything she just talked about was before me.
yeah.
Well, not really. She actually came to me in 7th grade.
Whatever. It's not true.
Anyway, so we started dating in high school, and then kind of went our separate ways for 20 years about. And so I married her we got back together, and I married her in 2006. So that was my introduction to the scrap world.
A good year. That was a good year because you were like,
Oh yeah,
you got a good two. You got, all of 06, you got 07, you got half of 08. So you had a good run.
yeah. I was like, man, this is like
taking candy from a baby.
yeah, it's like, man, jackpot.
Yeah.
And then
Oh, wait.
October of 08, and you're like, huh, this sucks. But no, it's been a fun ride. I mean, I've done everything from opening one of the yards up from the ground. I mean, literally the first day we moved the can baler in there, to I mean, going out with a car crushing crew, loading trucks, just about everything you can think of. I mean, I've kind of done a little bit of all of it.
He's operations
But
driven.
I'm more of an operations guy. I mean, I don't consider myself a strong business person. I'm a relationship guy, but as far as the business and the cogs and the wheels turning about depreciation and all that,
Yeah.
that one right there she's brilliant. I mean, she really is the brains behind K&L. So I guess I would be the brawn and she's the brains, because I'll go out and bail cans or help process non-fairs, but I can't make the decision she makes. So she's really the reason that we're even still in business, really, because 08 was rough on all of us that were in this business. And so, but it's been a good ride. And I think one of the main reasons that she goes to it's a faith-based, a Christian-based business group that we all meet monthly. And one of the things that stuck out to her in one of their meetings was, if you're not growing, you're dying. And she kind of took that to heart. And I agree with her. I mean, if we're just sitting here and coasting with what we have right now, what are we doing? What are we really doing? I mean, we're just basically have jobs. And so that's kind of where we started looking at advancing K&L and growing K&L. Because we really do want to provide a life for not only our employees, but now with the third generation involved, you want them to have something to continue to grow and invest in, and who knows, maybe their children will one day be involved, maybe not, but we wanted to be able to leave something here, and not just something stagnant, but something that's still moving forward.
Absolutely. And just for the record, I sit next to our CFO. It was one of my best friends, just for that reason, because I feel like operationally, I'm a lot more sound than I am on the financial side. I mean, I could navigate my way through it, but I sit next to the accountant for a reason, right? Because it takes all kinds, and you need both sides. You need someone to keep you on your toes. You need someone, if you say, hey, I want to do this or buy that, or does this work? And they can say yes, or they can say, pound sand. I think you need that give and take. So, and if you want, I mean, I watched my mom and dad do it my whole life, right? So, I mean, my mom was the CFO and my dad was relationships and operations. And so I think I got a little bit of both in me from them, but I still know that I still knew enough to go find a good accountant. A good
Right, right.
CFO.
And we have a really good leadership team. There's 7 on our leadership team, and so we have a good team. So we kind of do everything. We use a EOS system,
Okay.
and it really helps. I know that y'all have your operations meeting once a week, and we do that very similar thing. And so we're trying to build the infrastructure for the growth. So we've kind of done that, and we've got that in place, and now it's trying to decide which way to go forward.
So when you think about like the future of K&L, like what do you guys see? What do you, I mean, what do you, when you look out there, was it operationally or whatever? I mean, and whatever you're willing to, put out on the internet. I mean, what do you see that's out there for you guys? I mean, growth wise, more facilities, more like,
Yeah,
deeper on the
it-
processing side, or?
it's kind of been, probably over the last year or so, we've gone down a couple of avenues that we've done a lot of research and stuff on, but, and I feel like that, a lot of it is all about God's timing and what he has planned for us. And I feel like that some of these avenues we've researched, I think we're gonna get there. We just don't know if the time's right. But in the short term, one thing we're really concentrating on, K&L has always been real big on peddler traffic. But we are growing our commercial accounts. I think our goal last year was to purchase how many new roll-off boxes? Like 10, 10 boxes. Let's start there. Because we probably have had about 80 or 90 running around just in this area around Tyler. And so we bought 10. Well, we ended up buying how many? Like 30. And now we're probably buy 15 or 20 more. So
Which is no small investment. Like people, when they say, oh, 10 or 20 or 30, and I don't know what you guys are paying for boxes out there, but if they're 30 or 40-yard boxes, I mean, you're anywhere from 10 to 15 a box.
Right.
I mean, I know like what we pay for a good box, and that's not a small investment,
It's
Yeah.
not, but you said in one of your interviews, I heard you say y'all took your business from 75% peddler and 25% commercial, and you flipped it.
We totally did. Yeah.
And
That's probably
our
about
goal.
what we are right now, is the 75-25 or maybe even 80-20 historically. But
Retail 80,
Yeah.
75-80 retail, and 20.
Right.
Okay.
Now, our facility in Great Bend, Kansas, they have over 100 roll-off boxes out, just that one facility, and they're probably a lot more. That's 75-25.
Okay.
So we're just trying, that's not anything. We bought a lot of existing yards in the 9 that we have. Some of them are greenfield, probably half and half greenfield and half existing yards. So the roll-off containers that we had in this area were some we just inherited when we bought a yard and they had a roll-off business. So
Right.
it's never been anything that we've concentrated on down here. And just over the past year, concentrating on it, it's proved the ROI on one of those $10,000 containers is not bad.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, putting that back out there, I think our goal is to have 400 is our first goal. So that's what we're concentrating on right now.
And the advantage of the box, I tell people this all the time. They've asked me a question like, you and I think we've had this originally. How would you, if I was to start from square one, how would I start? I'd buy a truck and boxes, and then I'd buy the facility, right? Because I think that your ability to control your transportation just brings so much value to your business. And that's like the material, not just people think about transportation, they think about material on the outbound side. But I think about it like inbound and outbound, because you got to, anymore, we are becoming such a service-based business. I mean, people want to know, like, when can you come get it? When can you be here to crush the cars? When can you, drop me a roll-off box or a bin or a trailer or a whatever the case may be. And it's became, I feel like in my dad's era, and my dad started to recognize it, and that it was changing. It was less about, the scale traffic, especially if you're in a more rural type area, where you don't have a Houston type population where there's just people everywhere, right? That are generating, scrap flow. So if the more rural you are, the farther you got to go, which your ability to drop boxes and service those boxes and whatever else, that's how you're going to get scrap flow when the scale price is shitty. And then when
That's
scale
right.
price is shitty, people don't want to spend the diesel or the gas to bring it in there. They just let it sit in the field. They don't really care. But
Right.
but if you want to, but they still need to get rid of it. And a lot of times they're willing to load it or have you come load it or whatever the case may be. But your ability to service that business and your ability to service those manufacturing accounts who are generating scrap regardless of the price, that's how you keep your flow sound when the price, comes off a cliff or, nickels and dimes you all the way down, and it keeps that material flowing even when the pricing isn't great.
That's what we're hoping for. So I took that to heart when you said that. And so that's what we're gunning towards.
Yeah, I feel that's smart on your guys' part. I mean, not because I said it, but I just feel like you guys were onto it. You guys understood it. And I just feel like just your ability to control the flow. That's why big companies buy small companies, is they want the flow. That's why steel mills buy shredders.
That's right.
Because they want to control their inflow, right? And how do you control the inflow as a small guy? I think it's bins and boxes and customer service. So if you got the customer service and you can afford some of the input stuff, trucking and boxes, I think it's a good move. But it's like anything, you can't just go buy 100 boxes.
Right.
And because now you got to have, XYZ amount more trucks, and there's a lot to it. It's a slow build to get to that point, usually, unless you just say buy somebody out.
Well, and we're having to analyze, okay, how many boxes can one truck service in our footprint? And, at what point are we going to have, because right now we're running 2 roll-off trucks. So what point are you going to have that third one? And, they're not cheap.
Yeah.
And also finding personnel to drive them is not cheap. So just, you don't want to get it too early, but you don't want to get it too late. So that's kind of what we're having fun analyzing right now.
Well, and another thing that we kind of complemented the roll-off service from the metal recycling, the scrap standpoint, was we also are putting our name out there, and we've put a lot of boxes out there just servicing contractors with the C&D disposal.
Oh,
so we've got 30-yard billboards all over town with these general contractors that we know. And we run into people all the time and goes, "Hey, I saw one of your boxes," and I'm like, "Well, that's awesome."
God looks out for the ignorant, and we qualify because we got these big trash dumpsters where, they don't have the braces down the side. So we said, "Oh, we'll just put our logo on the side of them and our phone number, blah, blah, blah." And like he said, they become walking billboards. And so the funniest one is we had one that was sitting right outside of where everybody left the country club. Right outside was the dumpster sitting right in front of them. And so people that have known us forever are like, "Oh, is that what you do?" Like, no, that's not what we do.
But we will for a price.
That's right.
But I mean, it just fit because it's like we have the equipment, and there's typically a lot of construction going on in this area. So I mean, it just kind of fit with our operation. We've got the truck, we've got the boxes, or we bought the boxes specifically for the C&D disposal. But so we keep those pretty much full all the time.
We have a friend that is a contractor. And so how that started is we're sitting in our operations meeting one day and he brought that up. So we called her and said, "Hey, how much do you pay for that?" And she told us, and she said, do you want that gig? And we're like, "Yeah, we want that gig."
Yeah, we want that gig.
Yeah, we want that.
And
So
then-
that's
we got 5 or 6 projects going on at a time. So we have a box at each one. So
I think it's important for people to understand too. And I think we're going to get into some tricky markets in 2024. And I don't know, I can only speak for my own scrap flow, at our yards in Idaho and Oregon. But, we probably were, I would say 25 to 30% volume down from 21, 22 to 23. And we were talking in our meeting, our managers meeting here last week, and they said, "What do you anticipate for 24?" And I feel like I feel like it's going to be a lot like 23. I think it's going to be a challenging year on the scrap flow standpoint. I feel like a lot of the low hanging fruit got picked in 21 and 22, and maybe early 23. And I don't see maybe pricing, just taking off. And I think it's going to be a choppy year. And this is just my guess, but I feel like anything you can do in your business that gives you opportunity to weather, a volume reduction or whatever the case may be, is smart. And I feel like you guys talking about the C&D, I'm glad you brought that up, just because it's you guys being aware, hey, I've got these boxes, I've got the ability to turn them. Maybe I'm not going to make a jag of money, like if it was full of 304 stainless or prepared iron, but that's the things that actually help you weather the storm a little bit, and hopefully 24 is rosy. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm all the way wrong. And I think, and it goes off like a rocket. But if it doesn't, you start putting things in place to be able to help you continue your growth of adding more roll-offs, because you can service them. You got a home for them, their billboards, all the, the marketing side of it has a lot of value too. Right. And I think you guys are smart for that.
Well, and I think the way we kind of looked at it initially, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we were kind of looking at it as, okay, if we can put these C&D disposal boxes out, will that generate the revenue to cover the cost of?
We would love to get that to a zero cost. We'd love to have enough of the trash disposal to offset the cost of getting the material to the yards and the roll-offs. So that's what we would love.
And I think it's gotten pretty.
It helps tremendously cut down on the cost, because we figure everything on a tonnage basis. So we're figuring out how much a ton it costs us to get metal to the yard. And so we're able to offset that with some of that income to help.
So my last question for you is, you got the third generation working in the business right now, right? Is it as good as you expected it? Does it create its own set of challenges? Are you happy? let me know. I'm curious.
It's fun. It's really fun, because our son that is getting involved, he is a lot like my dad. And so we'll be sitting in a meeting and he'll say something, and it's like he sounds just like my dad sometimes. And you're going, oh my gosh. And he has just a really different view on things, but he's been around this business all of his life. He was talking about the other day that he was hauling my dad, pulling a gooseneck trailer to Kansas and hauling stuff back. And he goes, I don't even know if I was supposed to be doing that at 16 years old. And
yeah, he's like completely out of compliance at 16. Their gross weight ratings probably, he's in a dually and a gooseneck. So I mean, they were probably gross weight rating probably 40,000.
Yeah.
But just little things like that. And and he buried a truck one time and had a big tow bill, and he got to pay that back by bailing cans, for free until he paid back his tow bill. So he's been around it the most. So it's really fun to hear their thought process on things. And so it hasn't proved to be, they've been around me enough that they know how I operate and what will and won't go, and even better not be late to work and you don't miss. And, so it's not a problem. It's been fun.
Awesome.
It's not a challenge with him specifically, because Dylan, he's 25. He's 25. He's dyslexic. So that was a challenge in a formal school setting. But when it comes to like this business and common sense, he's like brilliant.
Yes.
I think that has to do with that dyslexia that sometimes those guys are just smart, and he's brilliant when it comes to that kind of stuff. So his mind works differently than ours does. So he sees things that we don't see. Even with all the experience and the age and what we call wisdom, he sees things we don't. We're like, I'm not going to admit that Dylan just showed me that, but so it's pretty cool.
But they say, the majority of all billionaires are dyslexic because they don't have the bridge between their brain that where we'd look at something and say, oh, we can't do that. They don't do that. They look at something and figure out how to do it.
Yeah, they
And
break
s-
it down. They go back to like what they call like first world first level principles, right? So they break it all the way down and say, okay, like level one, and they start to rebuild the problem towards the solution versus us up here trying to connect the two, saying it's not possible. They go all the way to the bottom and build towards the solution side.
That's right. And it's really good because he's obviously very operational. And our son-in-law has an MBA and he's very financial. So they complement
Good,
each other.
that's a good balance. That's a good balance. Well, I think that sets up well for you guys. I mean, honestly, I mean, I'm looking forward to coming out to Tyler, and I'm gonna make it happen.
We
and
have
when
our adopted one right in the middle that is 15 years younger than us, that we claim him as ours too. And he compliments because he's kind of a little bit on both sides. So I'm anxious for you to come meet everybody.
I'm in. Well, thank you guys for taking the time. I appreciate it, and you'll see me in person. And send me the link on that table. I'm curious.
Good.
Thanks, Brett.
Thanks,
Take
Brett.
care. You guys have a
Bye-bye.
great day. Yeah.
You
bye.
too.